Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to show you a bit about how Giraffe can be used to do data transfer amongst packages within the ecosystem. So I'm going to do GIS and QGIS, Rhino, because King Rhino, going to Vectary as well, and maybe a couple of others, all from Giraffe, all very easily. And the reason I want to show that is to show that Giraffe is a great participant in the ecosystem of digital modeling tools. And I want to show that because I profoundly think that the ecosystem approach is the future. So currently we're at the world of, I'd say, the mastodons, these really large do-it-all packages that have come from late last century, basically, where they do everything. And that world, I think, is fading away for architects. I don't think that those really large packages cut it anymore for two reasons. The first is the pace of innovation is just too quick for one package. Even if they have 1,000 or 10,000 developers doing pure R&D on that package, it's actually just not enough. And an example that struck me recently was Nano Banana from Google, which isn't even an AEC player directly. But with Giraffe, I could take a screenshot of a floor plan, much like the one that you see on my screen there, put it into Nano Banana and tell it to render it like it was Frank Lloyd Wright, who'd just taken LSD, and it would do it perfectly. And then I could say, oh, more pink, more yellow, more, and it just responded. And that was easy for me to access because constantly we're thinking about the ecosystem and we're never captured by one package and its features. And so our eyes are always looking at what's happening. And that means that we're able to grab innovation wherever we see it. And I think architects need to be in that same boat. The second reason why the ecosystem is the future is that it gives the leverage back to the architect. So I think the big packages, the large sort of do-it-all packages, actually tend towards a monopoly, whether it's intentional or not, where all the training, all the licensing leads architects to kind of feel like they have no choice. They just sort of have to buy these big packages. Whereas in an ecosystem, if it's a viable, vibrant ecosystem, there's always other options. So Giraffe is an early stage modeling platform, but there's Arcol, there's Snaptrude, there's SketchUp, there's even the big packages. And so if you get annoyed by Giraffe, buy another package. If you get annoyed by another one, buy another one. And even if you say no to 5 of them and there's still another 5 to choose from, you've got a great deal of leverage. If there's only 2 or 3 packages and you don't want to deal with 2 of them, you're stuck. So an ecosystem gives the architect, the designer, the customer leverage, which I think is very precious. It does come with a downside, and that is it can feel overwhelming to try to learn every tool in the ecosystem. And I think we can actually get around that. I think when you think of these tools in a tool-first paradigm, when you say, oh, I have to learn Revit and Archistar and Rhino and SketchUp, I can't be bothered learning Giraffe and Snaptrude and Arcol, and that is very overwhelming. But that's actually the wrong way of looking at it. You kind of turn it inside out and you look at the data and the data flows first. And then from that lens, all of these packages actually feel very similar. And I'll say the analogy I sort of use is kind of like a car. Once you learn how a car works, check the brakes, check the fluid levels, put petrol in the petrol tank, understand the pedals. Doesn't matter if you're in a BMW or an Audi or a Toyota. You understand the car, you can drive all of them, right? And I think the packages are actually far closer to that than they are separately. So, for example, Giraffe is using GeoJSON to edit data. It feels very, very similar to something like Illustrator, which is also editing vector graphics. So we've got stroke width and fill color and fill opacity, and those paradigms carry through to ArchiCAD and Rhino and all of these things. And so once you sort of say, okay, we're actually dealing with data formats, then all the capabilities of the tools might be different in a shallow sense, but in a deep sense, they're just the same. It's just editing properties on data. And that's a profoundly freeing thing. I would say it's profoundly freeing enough that it should be a core competence of an architect or an architectural designer. I think if you think of the core competencies of yesteryear, understanding scale and line weight and pen weight and sheets and sections and plans and isometric, that wasn't architecture, but it was core to doing architecture when you drew on paper. And just like this digital data isn't actually architecture, but it's core to doing architecture. It's core to the communication of architecture. It's core to the process of design, especially in a digital world. And everything's now digital. And so without much further ado, preamble, I want to sort of talk you through concretely how that data flies around the ecosystem. And before I do, the last thing I'll say is that this data first paradigm is probably a good way to assess players in the ecosystem. So if you're looking at 4 or 5 products, the one that makes most sense to invest in is the one that uses the most open data and exposes that data most openly. So are there proprietary formats? Can you understand the way that data flows through the application? Is it sort of transparent? And if the answers to those questions are yes, then you know that that tool is going to function well in the ecosystem. I would say that is 95% of Rhino's advantage. The reason Rhino is so good is because it is so transparent. It's points, lines, NURBs, surfaces, into volumes. It imports everything, it exports everything. So it's not truly a BIM platform, but you use it for BIM jobs because it's the data is right there at the top. Giraffe really strives to be like that. QGIS is similar. And so when you're thinking data first, you can actually use that as a lens to assess products. And the products that are more data first are more flexible, more transparent. Generally, they're cheaper because they're not trying to build proprietary formats. And you can actually build on top of them. So let's show you what I mean. So I'm going to come here into Giraffe, and I'm going to remodel an apartment building. So Giraffe is a data editor. So when we draw an element in Giraffe, and I click on this JSON, this is the data. This is literally what this is. And that text that you see on the screen is the text that's stored on the database that defines this geometry. And you can read that into Python, into Dynamo, into Rhino, into Excel. You can read that into any JavaScript, anything. That's how close the data is to the surface of Giraffe. And what that means is for Giraffe, we can define flows. And what flows are data flowing through functional blocks. So this functional block takes a bunch of features, which represent rooms, and it automatically applies walls. So this internal and external walls maker takes some polygons and it makes some lines that represent walls. So in that sense, it's a building information model where the lines represent walls and the polygons represent rooms or slabs. And the power this gives us is I can come in and I can say, all right, let's build a new apartment. And you can see as soon as I finish that apartment, the algorithm starts adding walls to it. And let's make this a bedroom, pull it back. And let's make another bathroom in between here. And you can see the walls the internal and the external walls are differentiated by the algorithm. And you can see that self-healing bathroom. And then let's drag a balcony across the front of this apartment. And I'm just using the eyedropper to pick up the properties from here to there. So now you can see there's our unit. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this like this. So we get a 2 units, 3 units. Now this is a design intent model. And I'm not doing a huge amount of detail because at this level of this period, it's not that important. And now I'll grab this envelope and I'll delete this whole bill, or I'll grab these are called grid lines. I'll grab those. And what these grid lines are doing is creating the party walls. So you can see as that grid line comes over that wall, which is between 2 apartments, it turns it gray because it's an acoustic. All right, so I'll do that and delete that old apartment. And now let me just slide this corridor into the middle here. And the reason I sort of belabored that corridor is because the actual flow, the logic here, actually sits on this corridor geometry. And now let me make this a bit interesting. Something like this. There we go. That's actually really cool. And we'll deal with the inside, the core, the vertical transportation in a later episode. Maybe let's just do a bit more design. That one sticks out. I guess we should stick this guy out too. And why not him? slap somewhere like. Yeah. So there is a building, and it's on a site. It's geolocated. It's in the Sydney Harbour. And now I'm going to start pushing it around. And I'm going to export it as a GeoJSON. And then I'm going to put it into QGIS. So if I come to QGIS here, and I bring up my downloads, here, and this one I just downloaded, I'm going to drop in, and QGIS is going to ask me what I want to import. I'm just going to import the whole lot, and there we go. That and that are the same, and that's how easy it is to get from Giraffe to QGIS. Now, why would we go from Giraffe to QGIS? Is because they have different capabilities. So QGIS is a pure play GIS package. It's extraordinarily powerful. You can see all the data's come through as well. But if you were doing something like mapping out a portfolio or trying to understand how many bedrooms there are in your city or mullions or something, that's a GIS problem, which a tool like Giraffe is probably going to struggle with. See, Giraffe is optimized for this early stage design, this rapid feasibility, like this rapid design intent modeling. There's no way QGIS could keep up with us in that sense. But for certain jobs, certain GIS heavy analytics, there's no way we can keep up with GIS. Some of the algorithms in QGIS are sort of 50-year-old, been optimized for almost half a century. They're unbelievably powerful. And that's why we play in the ecosystem, and we can go from there, to back. No loss. All the properties come through. No fuss, no proprietary, no connectors needed, just in and out. All right, another thing that you may want to do is texture up this model. So let's just export this GLB, and I'm going to come to Vectary, and I'm going to flip across to my downloads, and I'm just going to grab this GLTF. So the GLTF is the GLTF, and the GLB is the binary version of the GLTF. And in it comes, and there it is. And this and this are the same model. Now, where Vectary is really amazing and really fun is that you can use it to style. And so if I ungroup all of this stuff, then click on and ungroup it again, click on this guy, and we change the color of the gentle glow, we can change the way that this building looks and feels, and we can get into it. Let's do this over here, and we can add textures to it. So this is kind of a visualization rendering specialization that we're using over here. And this texture transformation, where I'm going to go in there and sort of make that a bit smaller and a bit thinner. That's an awesome capability. And it's a capability that's not in Giraffe, but Vectary is so reasonably priced and so powerful and so optimized that why wouldn't you use it to do that job? And that's, again, one of the amazing benefits of ecosystem. And if you don't like Vectary, or if you have a preferred workflow in Lumion and SketchUp or Twinmotion or whatever it is, you just do it in those packages. Now, I really like Vectary because you can click publish here and you can create interactive hotspots. And so for a marketing workflow, you can texture this thing up, you can add some furniture, books, coffee cups, etc., and some interactions. Like I want a floating UI, and then you publish it to your domain, like your real estate website or something like that, and you're away. And that workflow, Giraffe to here to there, very, very quick, and the data travels through. All right, now the last one I want to do is Rhino, because we sort of have to do that. Now, the file that I downloaded, this JSON file, it's a GeoJSON file, it should be .geojson, is the one that went directly into Q, and we're actually going to use the same file. Now I'm in Rhino, and I've got this Python script, which is coming from, I've downloaded it from our knowledge base. To be honest, it was mainly written by ChatGPT, and the LLMs work really well when you're operating on data pipelines directly, when nothing's hidden from you. You're feeding the text of the model straight to the scripts. And so we're going to run that. Can I click on that? Going to open that. And you'll see over here, that same building has appeared now in Rhino. Verify. shaded. There's our little diagonal buildings and our two pokey out bedrooms on the south side. So this building here and this building here are the same building. So we've gone within 15 minutes, really within 10 minutes, from nothing, just a script, which the data kind of flows within Giraffe, and then we've exploded Giraffe open and pushed the data around the ecosystem, and we can now have meaningful conversations with marketing and presentation and comms, and we can have meaningful conversations with the geospatial analytics team, and we can push it into Rhino to do more BIM, detailed design, facade modeling, or out of Rhino, push it into all of the various packages that Rhino speaks to. For example, there's 1 million Rhino to Revit connectors. Hopefully this has made concrete for you the idea of an ecosystem of design tools and shown a really powerful working example. All of the packages I've shown here are relatively affordable and extremely powerful. I don't think we are going to completely replace the need for the large packages, especially with document management, cutting sections, doing plans, publishing details out. But even in that document management PDF production space, there's huge innovation in AI-generated documents and in lightweight packages like round design. Nothing that I've shown you here requires deep technical knowledge. Most of the data transforms that I showed were done through the GUI, through the graphical interface, where you're just clicking download and dragging files from package to package, with the one exception of the Python script that I showed you in Rhino. Although to copy that Python script and make it work is not very complicated, especially in the age of the